What's going on, partners? Today I'm going to introduce you to the Sheriff Civilian Oversight Commission. This commission was established in 2016 to police the police. The commission likes to start off some of the meetings by giving community members an opportunity to speak out on how they have been system impacted. Here's a family sharing their story.
For a long time, this commission has given time at the beginning of each meeting for families who are impacted by sheriff interactions with the sheriff or police violence can have a time to address that and speak to us. And we have a family here today to do that. Is that right, Tracy?
That is correct.
Okay. So if you could come forward, the members of the Nunez family.
I am Cindy, the sister of Francisco Nunez, who was found deceased in an alley off Division and J7 in Lancaster on March 14, 2024. My family's pain began that day when two detectives arrived at my parents' home, notifying them of Francisco's death. How is this affecting our family? We are grieving, we are broken, and we are terrified. I leave my mom's house before the sun goes down as I refuse to be pulled over by law enforcement at night. I was placed on a medical leave of absence. I have individuals walk by my home taking pictures of my cameras at home. I no longer allow my children to be outside of my home nor Francisco's home. The harassment has not stopped at all. On our social media, a deputy liked a picture of Francisco's story. My mother and grandmother couldn't even go to the vigil we held for Francisco because of the pain and the fear. I am not a distrustful person, nor did I have any negative regards towards law enforcement. I work with law enforcement. I have nothing personal against LASD, as once again, I work DMH MET, Department of Mental Health MET Unit. I have no motivation and no reason to lie to any of you. We simply just want to know what happened to Francisco that night. We want the truth. We want full transparency between us, the family, and the Sheriff's Department. What happened on the night of March 8th, early morning of March 9th? Where was he really for 5 days? He was hanging out in his neighborhood with his friends on the night of March 8th. Francisco and his friends made contact with Sheriff's Department deputies. Everyone scattered through the alley. Two companions he was with were arrested and taken into custody that night. We know that Francisco was also in custody that night because he never made it home. We were searching for him in the LASD custody database. We thought he was in custody because otherwise he would have come home that night. One companion who was arrested that night, who currently remains in custody, was told by family that Francisco was found deceased. He stated there was no way they had Francisco that night and they were supposed to take him to the hospital. He couldn't believe it. On March 14th, two detectives came to Francisco's home to notify my parents that Francisco was found deceased in the same alley he had been hanging out that Friday night, early Saturday morning. At that point, we didn't know what had happened to Francisco. That's all we knew. The same evening, my family gathered together to mourn Francisco, and this is where the harassment began. The first patrol passed by, rolled down his window, and yelled out foul language to us. Shortly after, another patrol car passed by and stated, "Are we going to keep it G? And is there going to be any retaliation?" We didn't understand why they were stating this or asking us such a thing, as we had no information on Francisco's death yet other than him being found deceased. LASD deputies came to my house at 5 a.m. when I never called for service that morning. How did they know where I lived? When the death notification was given at my mom's house, I didn't open the door as I was terrified. I was alone with my kids and I refused to open the door for any reason. They also arrived at the viewing service after my family had left. Why are they coming to my brother's viewing? They didn't know him like that. What was their reason to be there? They also arrived after our vigil. Witnesses who witnessed things that have not been interviewed by any detective. Instead, witnesses are being followed by deputies. Another companion of Francisco that was arrested was brutally beaten. He requested medical attention and wasn't given the proper attention. He was taken to AV Medical Center, where while in the car was told by the deputy he didn't care about these body cameras and how he could go home that night if he only talked to them. Companion stated he was not interested in any get out of jail program offered by the deputy, and was then asked if he knew about a machete man that was shot at a grocery store in Lancaster. Deputy proceeded with saying, "That one, my partner did that one here," as in taking initiation or credit for the man's death. No other gang has bothered us, nor have they harassed us at all. The only one that has done this to us since March 14th is the deputies. They are the only ones doing this to us. Why are they doing this to us? Why me? What are they guilty of? And what do these deputies fear? I used to see these stories on TV, and now we're one of those families. I am here fighting for Francisco Nunez, who was a father to 8 beautiful children, the youngest being 9 months old. He was also a brother, he was a son, he was an uncle, and he was a great friend. Francisco saved my daughter's life when she was only 2 years old. That's the man who he is. He loved dirt bikes, he loved the outdoors, he loved cooking, he was a man of many, many talents. He is not what law enforcement will portray him to be. The Sheriff's Department has released to the public there's no signs of trauma nor bruising to Francisco's body. My family and I were given time alone with him. We saw his body and clearly has signs of bruising, handcuff marks, signs of an altercation on his hands, pepper spray bullets to his body, throughout his body. We saw clearly there is evidence of handcuffs and bruising. Even after I spoke with Captain Bartlett regarding this, clearly the harassment has not stopped. I pleaded with him to make it clear to his deputies that this was not acceptable behavior. I assured him during our conversation that the harassment is real and it is happening in our community and it's happening to me and my family. He is responsible for what his deputies do while on patrol as the captain of that station. They are doing this to my family under Captain Bartlett's watch. I'm asking the Inspector General to please monitor the investigation of my brother's death and investigation of my allegations of harassment. I'm asking Los Angeles Sheriff's Department for full and clear transparency between us, the family of the victim, and the department and station, which clearly we do not have. We want the truth of what happened to Francisco. Where was he for 5 days? I'm asking Captain Bartlett to make his deputies stop harassing and intimidating against our family. Anyone in the Sheriff's Department that harasses grieving families must be held accountable. To say, here I am, another family being harassed by Los Angeles Sheriff's Department. Thank you.
There you have it. You heard Ms. Nunez's testimonies yourself. Now, she left me with more questions than answers. Before I start looking into the situation, let's go ahead and listen to a comment of one of the commissioners.
Sean, if I
Yes.
might, one other bit of the testimony that I think stood out to me and perhaps to others was the comment made by, as reported by the sheriff's deputy, about Machete Man and claiming credit for that shooting. My partner did that. And I just want to note the patently intimidating quality of utterances like that. And if that also was caught on camera, that kind of intimidating comment needs to be looked into. And just one closing note, I want to assert that the witness testimony provided here is also striving towards factual evidence. And so to say that we don't have the facts, we don't have all the facts, I want to pay respect to the factual evidence being provided by witnesses, bearing witness to what they have experienced and what others close to them have documented and witnessed. That is factual. That cannot be sloughed under the carpet or painted as just perspective or subjective. So I want to make sure that that is not treated in a derogatory fashion as factual evidence provided, I think, here with some considerable sacrifice to be here and to put it on the record for this commission and for the County of Los Angeles. Thank you.
Thank you, Hans.
I just had one.
So here you have Commissioner Johnson sitting in a public meeting talking to the public and telling them that her statements are evidence, that her statements are factual. Her statements are hearsay. And her statements in court would not be allowed because she did not witness it. What is this guy even talking about? And it gets even worse. Listen to what another commissioner had to say.
Other statement to make, because I have a concern, how can a body be left out on the street for 5 days? Now, I want to make sure the coroner has documented when he received the body, estimate time of death. Being a registered nurse myself, I have grave concerns about how a body can be on the street and nobody notice a dead body. I am a mother of 3 Black sons, and I take this very, very serious. And I want the Nunez family to understand that it hurts me to hear this type of comments. And we are concerned, and we are very, very sorry. I just need to say that because it's so hurting to hear these comments.
Well, I'm glad that this commissioner clarified that she's the mother of 3 black men. I don't understand why she couldn't say I'm a mother of 3 men. For a second thought, I thought she had given birth to Smurfs. But it blows my mind how out of touch she is. What do you mean a dead body laying in the street for 5 days? We don't know if the body laid in the street for 5 days. And haven't you been to Skid Road? Haven't you been to Venice Beach? Some of the bodies that are laying there, I don't even know if they're alive. They're high on fentanyl, they're high on crack. How out of touch are you, lady? Let me show you what the streets of LA actually look like. Here you go, Commissioner. The concept of a grown man laying on the street for 5 days without the police being called is so concerning to you. Well, here it is. I'm showing it to you right now. In the future meetings, this is what you need to speak about because you are the mother of 3 black men. And this is not being talked about. You guys are bringing up Machete Man. What does Machete Man have to do with the death of Francisco Nunez? It has nothing to do with it. You're just dirtying the water, muttering the story to get the community upset and put them against law enforcement. You're pushing your agenda. All right, so as I was doing some research on Francisco Nunez, I found this article. Now, I have no idea if this is the same person, but it was 10 years ago, which would have put Francisco at 28 years old. This gentleman was 28. His name was also Francisco Nunez, and he also resided in the city of Lancaster. So I have three coincidences. The ages match, the name matches, the city matches. And this Francisco Nunez was arrested for possession of drugs near a school. So that's going to tell me that if this is the same Francisco Nunez, he was not a upstanding citizen. I also found pictures of Francisco Nunez, and it looks like he is gang affiliated. Here you have someone throwing up a gang sign, and he's taking a picture here with Francisco. It looks like Francisco is pretty heavily tatted. Here we could see a B in the back of his head. Where we have any doubts, here it looks like it's the Brown Pride Sureños. Now, if Francisco was such a stand-up citizen, why wasn't he at home with his family? He was a father. What was he doing behind an alley hanging out with 5 other gentlemen? When they came in contact with law enforcement, why did they run? They bring up Machete Men. What does Machete Men have to do with Francisco Nunez? They bring up that story because it was a gentleman that was shot by sheriff's deputy up in Lancaster. They're trying to dirty the law enforcement name. They're trying to badmouth law enforcement. The reality is that we don't know what happened. There is going to be an investigation that's going to be conducted. But what this family is saying in these meetings is just stirring up hatred. There is no evidence that the sheriff's deputy did anything wrong. Should it be looked into? Of course it should be looked into. Is it going to get looked into? Of course it's going to get looked into. It actually sounds like it's being looked into by a gang unit detectives, gang investigations. If there is a murder and they believe that it's gang related, they are going to show presence at the viewings. They are going to show presence at the funeral just to make sure that there is no retaliation. It is apparent to me that Francisco Nunez was gang affiliated. Was he actively in the gang? I don't know. Was he doing gang shit that night? I don't know. But based on my observations that I see just doing a simple Google search, there is more that meets the eye. In my opinion, they're not harassing the family, they're conducting an investigation. And in my opinion, this gentleman was involved in something that the family doesn't want to know or the family is in denial of. But things here are just not jiving. They don't make sense. By far, this has been my favorite commission just because of the nonsense that they make. This is all I got for you today. Till then, partners, remember to hold them accountable and hold the line.